Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nate Ward. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center Export Assistance Network based at Cleveland State University. I'm joined here by my colleague Katie Van Dyke, who's the director of the Small Business Development Center, also at Cleveland State University, but located under normal circumstances at the Cleveland Heights Library. So, we want to thank you all for taking time out with us today to be part of this. This is our final webinar in our CARES Act consulting program. Today, we're really excited to share with you the team at SyncShow. Before I get into that and give you a little bit of their bio, I want to make sure that everyone here understands and knows who we are at the CSU Small Business Development Center. So, so our services are here. We're part of a state network, and our goal is to provide business services to the small and medium-sized companies of Ohio, specifically those that are in the Northeast Ohio area. Whether you're looking to open a business, you've recently started a business, you're looking for general help on advice, how to hire someone, how to expand your business, how to go for a loan, how to create a business plan, or in my case, the service that we do specifically, if you're interested in getting into foreign markets or you have a problem in a foreign market, we offer free and confidential services to help you navigate that environment. So, like I said, our services are free and confidential. Our mandate is to serve the small to medium-sized businesses of Ohio. So whether you're a company, you're an individual and you're a proprietor, you run your own business, or if you even have a mid-sized company, up to around 500 employees, thereabouts is probably our limit. As I said before, the Small Business Development Centers, we are part of a statewide network. There are over 30 centers scattered throughout the state. We are funded through taxpayer dollars, so our services are free to you. In our direct area, there are 3 small business development centers, including ours. There is the Urban League Hispanic Business Center, and then there's also one each in Lorain County at Lorain County Community College, and in Lake County at Lakeland Community College. We're all part of the same network. We all speak with one another, and once you become a client of the Small Business Development Centers, you're welcome to work with any and all of our centers if you'd like to gain different perspectives. And we each have our own sort of background and specialization, and we'd be happy to introduce you to our colleagues if you're joining us from somewhere other than here in Cuyahoga County. Sorry, if you could just go back one second. So there is a link at the bottom if you'd like to, if you haven't already become a client of the Small Business Development Centers, our website at the bottom, clients.ohiosbdc.ohio.gov, to access this map and to see other trainings that are being offered. Or you can visit csusbdc.com, and that will take you to our specific SBDC site, the Small Business Development Center for Cleveland State University. Thanks, Katie. So as I mentioned at the top of this presentation, we are very grateful to have the opportunity to present you to SyncShow, and I'll introduce Nadine and John in just a minute. But I want to take a second to recognize that we are able to offer their services through funding that we've received through the CARES Act. And so one of the things that we hope you take away from today's program is that if you're interested, if you hear something that our speakers mentioned today and you say, gosh, I really wish that they could help me out with my company, with my website, with something that I'm working on, terrific. We are in a position to be able to basically subcontract them out to you, to work for you, to work on a project, and we will take the expense. So there are some conditions and some things that we'll have to spell out of how exactly this all works. There are some eligibility parameters as well. But we're really hopeful that you hear something from our speakers today that you're hoping they could do for your company. So our speakers today, this is the final program that we've offered in a series of programs. So here's a listing of all the other professionals that we've brought under the same program. So we have consultants in cybersecurity, in accounting, finance, in human resources, in restaurants, intercultural consulting, international trade, and also online sales and marketing for a B2C environment. We have recordings for all of our past presentations at csusbdc.com, and also profiles of all the different consultants that we've hired. So if you're interested in working with any of those consultants, we welcome you to visit the site or reach out to myself or Katie, and we can make that introduction and get you started with any of them. If I can, before we go to my introduction of today's presenters, I do have one brief thing that I want to share with everyone, if I can. So just really briefly, in addition to today's speakers, I want to share with you, if some of you are part of our emailer, and this is a mailer that just came out today, our centers are also hosting a couple of other programs that may be of interest. On October 8th, we're hosting speakers from Alibaba and something called International Business and Technology. If you're interested in learning how to work with Alibaba, or you're looking to develop a website specifically for international, you may be interested in this program. We have yet to release a date, but we also have one scheduled with Amazon. We have a speaker from Amazon we're doing a whole 1-hour webinar series, webinar program on November 10th with them. And one other point that I'll mention is there is a grant. Some of you may be aware of a federal grant called the STEP grant that is offered through the state of Ohio. Every year for the last 10 years, we've had something around a $10,000 grant available. This is, again, for companies in particular, if you're looking at developing an international market. Well, this year, they've told us that there is an additional, they've increased the pot, they've increased the funding a little bit, and I could share more information if this is an interest of yours. But in short, if you're interested in developing perhaps a website or some additional resources digitally, or even perhaps visiting a foreign market, if that is a possibility, your company may be eligible to receive $10,000 or more from this really easy to apply, easy to access grant for any activities that happen from October 1st till September 30th of next year. So if that's all of an interest to you, please reach out to us, and I can share more information on how that works. The one other point that I wanted to share with you is just a little bit about what working with our consultants look like. So if you were to work with any of them, that's something that we're happy to provide for you and pay for that service. So with that, I guess I'd like to introduce Nadine and John. John's actually been a speaker of a few of the programs that we've hosted at Cleveland State University, and we're really delighted that together we're able to partner with SyncShow because I think they bring a really valuable service that when it comes to the emphasis nowadays on online, having a virtual presence seems to be at a premium. So we're really delighted that SyncShow has been able to become a partner for us with this special program at the Small Business Development Center. So with that, I guess we'll turn it over to Nadine. If you'd like to share your screen and get the program going, I'll invite you to do that.
Thanks, Nate. Happy to. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nadine Nocero-Tai. I am the Vice President of Client Service at SyncShow, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, John Daters. Thank you, Nate, for our intro, but John, if you want to give a quick hello before we jump in.
Hi, yeah, I'm Vice President of Technical and Creative Services here at SyncShow as well, too, and I have done a few talks for Nate and the CSU crew as well, too, so looking forward to doing another one.
Thanks so much. And I will now do the obligatory ask. So if you have it on your bingo card, I will call out, can you see my screen? So I'm hopeful that everyone can. Thanks for confirming, Nate. We're here to walk you through a seminar today called 10 Reasons Why Google Hates Your Website. To prepare you a little bit for about what we're going to talk about today, John and I are going to alternate on and off for these 10 reasons, move you through this presentation fairly quickly today. We have a lot to go through, but are looking forward to diving in. So as we look into these 10 reasons why Google hates your website, we're also going to talk about what you can do about it for success. First and foremost, let's talk about why you should care about Google. And the headline or the sub-headline on this is that Google has changed commerce. So let's dive in on what that really means. What you're seeing here is a pie chart, and this pie chart is quite simply showcasing Google's slice of the search engine pie worldwide. So what we're looking at here are daily searches in search engines, and as you can see in this dark blue, there are nearly 70% of the world's searches taking place daily on Google. How does the rest of that pie chart differentiate? We see Bing coming in as a far and away second, and then followed by Yahoo, Baidu, which is a Chinese search engine. We'll talk a little bit about that here momentarily. And then last but not least, AOL and other grouped smaller search engines. So why should we care about what Google thinks? It's because Google owns the marketplace on daily searches. That's the biggest takeaway here. I am sure if you all think about the way that you are using search engines as consumers, more likely than not, we're all using Google to primarily own what we're looking for and where we're looking for it on the internet. So we talked about what the daily searches look like worldwide. Here is the breakdown by country. This light blue is representative of Google. You can see by major countries listed here that it is far and away the top search engine of choice outside of China, which is primarily using Baidu as their search engine. And why does Google own this marketplace and the website? Yes, they are a behemoth of an organization, but at the end of the day, Google is an innovator. And by innovating constantly and regularly, they're able to stay in front of what we're all looking for and how we're looking to best be served by these search engines. And how do they do that? They do that through algorithm updates. So you can see here on this left-hand side, there have been 500 updates to the Google algorithm annually. So this is a statistic provided by Moz. Moz is a fantastic SEO or search engine optimization resource, and we absolutely recommend that you check it out. You can see there are some of these larger updates made year over year. 2012 far and away had some large updates to the search engines, specifically Google, and really changed the course of what we're talking about and how Google has evolved to prioritize different aspects of your website for search and what that means for your websites. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, John, to walk us through reason one.
Yeah, thanks, Nadine. So I think we set the stage that we all know this. Those are just charts to support that Google is the 2,000-pound gorilla in the room sort of thing. So while none of us really know exactly what is under the hood when it comes to Google's algorithm, and again, just a quick comment on what the algorithm is, those in the web industry fear and love it at the same time. It's basically how Google decides to rank a certain website based on what searches someone puts in. So it may surprise you that search engine optimization or how Google ranks your site goes way beyond just what keywords you choose and where you stick them on your website. So we'll talk about, while that's still important, we're going to talk about other elements that we call technical elements or technical search engine optimization elements that go into this. And this is far and away the #1 item that, while we can't guarantee that know exactly what's under the hood, as it were, for Google's algorithm, we absolutely know that website speed has a major impact on how you rank. And if your site is too slow, I hate to say it, you can have the best optimized keywords, you can have the most pristine copy, you are not going to rank well. Google's going to hate your site. If you could scroll down a second, maybe. So does Google care about site speed? Absolutely. So there's a link at the bottom here called testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. They've since changed the interface in the last few years, but the basic premise is the same. What it does is it says you can put your site up against into Google, and it'll say, okay, how fast does it take to load my site in Google's eyes? And you can see they have a color coded bar here. 3 seconds is excellent, up to 5 seconds is good, 8 seconds fair, and poor is anything over 8 seconds. Since this screenshot's been taken, since we've done this presentation in the past, they've actually gotten even faster. So Google absolutely ranks your site by speed. It's even given you basic scores for this. This is a rank on a 3G mobile network. That's what they rank it on. So if you go to your desktop right now and you've got nice cable access or something like that, and you type your site and you're like, I'm good. That's not what Google's ranking it off of. And we'll talk a little bit about mobile in the future slides, but Google's looking at what's the worst scenario I can put your site in and how fast can it load. And on a 3G connection, it has to load in at least 5 seconds to be considered good. They've upped this a bit now with 4G and now 5G coming out. With 4G, you actually have to go, in order to be considered good enough, 2.5 seconds or faster. So already even this chart is out of date. It's got to be 2.5 seconds or faster on a mobile 4G connection. Google cares exceptionally about this one. Thanks, Nadine. Next slide, please. So we can see that if you put your site through this tool, it's going to give you a score back, and it's going to say, you know, how good or how bad your site is. What's nice is it actually helps you understand in real terms. You can see that 29% here on a 9-second load for a site, what the estimated impact is on how much traffic you're losing. So regardless of Google's algorithm, if you get someone to your site and it takes more than 4 seconds, more than 5 seconds for something to load, we all know this. There's plenty of searches in the sea, right? We're going to hit that back button. We're not going to use your website. Well, Google understands that. Google looks out for Google. Google does not want to return sites that are so slow that if when a user clicks on it, they say, well, this is a useless site, I'm backing out. That reflects poorly on Google. So Google will absolutely place a lot of onus on how fast your site loads under specific circumstances. Thanks, Nadine. So this is what I was talking about, why speed matters. Again, at the end of the day, you know, Google has that, that phrase that says, do no evil. But at the end of the day, Google is a business and Google cares about Google. They want to look good. This is a very simple, fast loading site makes Google look good. A slow loading site makes Google look bad. If I continue to use something like AOL, Yahoo, whatever, and they're returning sites, one that don't meet my search criteria in the first place, but the other one is, you know, it's more table stakes. If I click on a link and it's not going to result in the data that I want and the timeliness that I want, I'm not going to use that link or that result anyway. And I may not be using that search engine in the future as well too. So Google cares about Google. Yes, it is a user experience issue, but at the end of the day, it's because it's user experience that impacts directly how we see Google's result. Google cares dramatically about page speed. Okay. All right. So how do you solve for this? This is notoriously one of the most misunderstood, but also hard to get your hands around for making actual updates to this. I will say that first bullet point, image optimization. For any of you that have a website that have images on your site, I will guarantee 9 times out of 10 that that is the major cause of a slow website for you. All in all, I'm going to talk a little bit technical here. I don't know the technical expertise of everybody on the call, but let's say that your entire site, a page of a website, if we consider this a file that you saved on your computer, should be a megabyte or smaller, right? That's how long it would take for that file, how much file size that file would take up. A lot of times images are taken on our iPhones, uploaded directly to our website, and guess what? Our phone is taken in the highest quality it can. Sometimes that picture alone is 5 megabytes. You upload that to your website, all of a sudden you have 5 megabytes that the browsers and Google have to download themselves. And that's really taxing on a user's computer. And that'll immediately make your site be slow. I've almost always seen this be a major element in the slow site speed. All these other ones, you're gonna unfortunately need a developer for. They have direct impact on your site speed. I won't get into what all of them are. I believe you'll have access to this presentation and definitely the recording afterwards. These are things to look at. Minification of CSS and JavaScript, that's a reduction in the amount of lines of code. Making sure that you're hosted on a robust server platform. That means for those of us that have sites on GoDaddy and we paid for that basic $7.99 hosting package sort of thing, those aren't necessarily the fastest hosting computers. Basically, that's where your site actually, all the files of your site actually live. Those are usually shared by dozens, sometimes hundreds of other websites. And you can imagine if you have a bunch of people hitting those computers at the same time, your site's not going to be that fast. So it behooves us to look at, servers, where our site's being hosted and how fast that is. For those of you looking to be international as well too, this is one I talked about on other CSU presentations for this organization that I've given for international SEO. If somebody's searching for you in China, if someone's searching for you in India, Brazil, wherever that site is hosted, your website is hosted, it still takes physical distance for that information to cross, and that longer the distance, the longer the download time. I'm not going to go through all of these here, but these are a lot of the technical elements that go into making sure a site is fast. And if you can get a site that's fast, I guarantee if you touch nothing else on your site, you will see your rank increase.
Thanks, John. I'm going to go ahead and walk us through reason number 2. Your website isn't mobilely optimized. So what does that mean exactly? What we have here on this left-hand graphic, if you will, is a non-mobile optimized website. And what we have here on the right is an example of what a mobilely optimized website would look like. So the quickest way to tell whether or not your website is mobilely optimized is to grab your smartphone, type in your website URL, and go to your website. Is everything looking scrunched and small? And is the layout difficult to read? Are your menus difficult to find? A mobilely optimized website will display to meet the specifications of whatever the device is that you're using. So I used the example here of my mobile phone, my iPhone. That's going to look different than on an Android device. It's also going to look different on an iPad. So your screen size is really impacted here. And the idea of a mobilely responsive website is that it moves to adjust for the screen size on your site, again, allowing for a better user experience. So user experience is something that we're going to be speaking to frequently in this presentation, and this is another example of that. So as John mentioned, speed is a factor, but being mobilely optimized is also a large factor here today. It's why this comes in as reason number 2. So we'll go into a little bit of the why on that and what that means. So over the last few years, what you're seeing here in this chart is that mobile searches from a phone, have overtaken desktop searches. And what does this mean? We all carry around a computer in our pockets. We are able to do searches through voice with Siri or typing into our Safari browser on our iPhone to find a search results for anything we might need anywhere we're looking for it. So because of that, we have seen an increase from Google saying, ensuring you're mobilely optimized is now more important than ever because more people are using a mobile device to search versus using their laptop or desktop computer. So what we see here is really just that escalation of the adoption of mobile, something, again, as consumers, we're all very aware of. I'm sure our phones go everywhere with us. I know mine goes everywhere with me. What these next few charts are going to take a look at is that the switch from desktop to mobile isn't a one-for-one. People didn't just simply throw out their desktop computers and say, I'm grabbing a keyboard on my iPad and I'm mobile and I'm taking my work with me wherever I go. I no longer purchase a desktop computer. I'm giving you this presentation from my desktop computer. I primarily work on one, but I'm also in regular non-COVID times commuting or traveling on an airplane and using my mobile device to allow me to work where I am. And what you'll see here is really an indicator of that being multi-platform. People are using their desktop, people are using their phones, people are using their iPads or their Surface devices. And that's really what we're seeing here is a larger embrace of searching for what I need on the device I prefer to use at this moment. And so because of that, we need to ensure that our website's optimized for all of these scenarios. And of course, in this instance of reason 2, we're talking about mobile. So what does it mean to make your site mobile friendly, aside from the responsive design that I've talked about here just in this first slide for this section? It also means removing any softwares that aren't mobile friendly. What you'll see with this X out here is for Adobe Flash. Flash does not display well on your phone and it inhibits a strong user experience. Down below we have removing pop-ups. So usually when you go to a website on your phone and you see a pop-up, either the X to cross out that pop-up or to disable it is very small or difficult to find, not allowing a user to then actually view the rest of your website, which is their main intent. So we recommend removing pop-ups on mobile. In this next column here, we have AMP, or accelerated mobile pages. There are content management systems, and which is the way your website is built, whether that's WordPress, for example, or Drupal, or HubSpot, the tool that our firm uses to build websites. You have an ability to show a mobile version of a web page versus a desktop version of a web page. So an AMP page typically will remove navigation, it will remove additional images. It's a simplified version of your web page that loads very quickly on mobile. And when you do a search for a web page on your mobile device, AMP pages are typically displayed above regular website pages. So Google is pushing towards showing an AMP page versus showing a regular page if it benefits the user, which we know it does because it loads faster, it's easier to read, and it provides that better user experience. We've already talked about mobile responsive design, so I won't continue to dig in here, but again, that's displaying the website at a proper size based on the device size you're looking at the website on. Over on our last column here, we have fat finger design and font size. So the idea here is, again, with the pop-ups, if you're unable to click appropriately with your finger, or if your menu items are spaced too closely together, if you're unable to click on the area you're hoping to click on, you'll end up on a different page that you don't expect to be on. You won't be able to cross out of a page. And again, it just creates a poor user experience. So are we designing the mobile site for fat fingers, to put it simply? And then font size. How readable is the website on your mobile device? I know many of us take our iPhones and increase our font size for our text messages or for our emails, but how is your website displaying on mobile to be very readable, digestible, and easy to get what you need? So these are all opportunities for how you can improve the mobile experience on your website.
Thanks, Nadine. And just to piggyback off that, I hear some folks say, so we at SyncShow, we work with a lot of B2B companies, and they say, well, everyone's searching for me at work. Well, I hate to break it to you, but look at your own user habits. Do you have your phone next to you, and are you searching on it as you have your desktop? It's that cross-platform sort of thing. And I will guarantee that the #1 rise, if you look at any analytics that you have on your website, any data tracking, the quickest rise on people come to your website is most likely mobile. If you look at it year over year, you'll probably see a higher increase over last year than this year than you would have desktop. And it's a chicken and egg thing in a lot of cases where they say, well, no one's coming to my site via mobile. Well, if your site is not mobile optimized, then that may be the reason as well too. And even if the users aren't coming, Google cares. They are ranking your site based on all of this, okay? So reason #3 is no one is linking to your website. So there's the word web in the World Wide Web for a reason. Everybody links to everybody. And Google embraces this in some aspect. So we can see a quote from Google here. Links help our crawlers find your site and give your site greater visibility in our search results. So there's a lot of links. There's internal linking, meaning internal pages link to themselves, but there's also what we call third-party or link backs from third-party websites, where it's somebody else's website that's linking to you, right? So this is a very important factor in helping Google better understand how it should categorize your site. Who you basically hang out with is really important to Google figuring out what your site is about and the quality of your site. You can go to the next slide for me, Nadine. So links can do two things. They can either build and prove trust in Google's eyes, or they can destroy trust. So I always think of, in layman's terms, I always think of this as what I call the halo and the horns effect. So let's say you go to a party and there's somebody standing in the middle of the room that you know, and maybe they're not a great person, right? They've been, in and out of jail, whatever, and they've got a bunch of people surrounding them, talking to them, right? You're going to take that feeling you have about that person and apply it to the folks speaking with them as well too. It's a psychological habit we do. That's the horns effect. We say everybody who's associated with that one person is also probably has some of the same aspects. Think of that person as your website, and then all these other sites linking to it, they are giving you that negative impact as well too. On the other hand, if there's someone, maybe a very famous person that everyone really likes is in a party, and all his or her friends are around as well too, talking to them, you're going to apply the halo effect to those folks around them as well too. Think of positive links in that way. Google looks at that as well. So we can see that point #1, well-regarded sites pass on authority to your site. Poorly regarded websites diminish your site's authority. So there's a big push and pull here. And if you have nobody linking to your site, well, in Google's eyes, you're irrelevant. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about what you have to say or who you are. So be careful what company you keep is really important. So if you go to the last slide for this section here. So what makes a good link is what a lot of people say. Yeah, it'd be great if we could link the Wall Street Journal link into you. That'd be fantastic. But so is a little mommy blogger who's writing about something specific to whatever your product is. They don't have to have millions of visitors a month or a day even in order to pass good SEO on off to you. You just really need to look at how trustworthy is the site. It's really this technical thing called the smell test. If you go and you see someone's linking to you and you visit their site and you say, I think this is a pretty spammy website. It's got a lot of paid links on it. It's got maybe some malware warning on it. It's all in Russian. It's probably doesn't quite pass the smell test. That's probably a bad site. How popular is the page that links to you? Again, doesn't necessarily mean popular as how many total number of people, but it's, does this site have a core following that really, really likes it? And how relevant is the site? If you sell kitchenware and you have all these sites that talk about how to raise a puppy linking to you, that has no relevance whatsoever. And that actually may not help you at all in ranking as well too. And then what keywords is a site using to point to your site? Are they negative keywords then pointing to you? That's probably not something that's going to help you. Or are they things that save you, again, to the kitchenware thing, best kitchenware in Northeast Ohio, and they link to you? That's much more likely to do well for you. Now, this is a constant sort of, you got to keep watching the till on this one. There are a bunch of tools out there, Google Search Console being one of them, that's free, that you can go and get your site associated with. And then you can see a lot of these links that are pointing to you. And then it becomes a big process. If you do find kind of a big bastion of poor links to you, there is remediation that you can do through Google called a Google disavow file that you can then get those sites, even if you can't go and say, hey, remove your link, because they may or may not do that. It's their website. You can tell Google, I want nothing to do with these bad links. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Our next reason number 4, is that your content is thin. So here we're talking about the content on your website. What are the words? What is your website about? What are we dealing with? So what is thin content? Thin content references web pages that have very little or very few value to the content. So the ideal length for a website page is 700 plus words. Google is really rewarding long form content that took place with their Panda algorithm update in 2011. And what's the why around this? So long form content typically means deep detail and expertise on a topic, but it also usually means a longer time on page. And a longer time on page has a correlation to a better website experience. If you didn't enjoy what you were reading about or you didn't find it valuable, you would typically leave having a very short time on page. So this is a little bit twofold. It's pleasing from a technical standpoint in that there's a longer time on page with more words, but it's also indicative of more words typically means more value. So what do you do about thin content? You have to look at this and look at every piece of content you put out on your website or every website page that you have, and you have to say, what would happen if I deleted this page? Would people care? And if the answer is no, you found your answer to delete the page. So if you are thinking about creating content for content's sake, this is our discussion to say, please do not do that. You should be looking at your website and creating content because it's very valuable, because it solves a problem, because it answers questions that your visitors are looking for solutions for. So if the page covers a topic and your readers find value in the content, great. But if they don't, think about it and say, how can I rewrite this page to make it more valuable? And you should be looking at every piece of content through each of those bullets or through both of those lenses to say, is this page relevant enough that it deserves a place on my website? If no, you should either delete it, remove it, or rewrite it to make it valuable. And last but not least, if you have multiple website pages talking about the same topic, and you can easily condense that into one more valuable page, go ahead and do that. It's going to provide your users more benefit if they can get everything that they need in one place and have a more comprehensive view than if small breadcrumbs of that information are sprinkled out over several website pages. So not only does it help with the user experience to give them what they need right in one place where they want it, but it also shows your depth and value when you can elaborate more deeply on these topics, helping to showcase you as a subject matter expert.
Thanks, Nadine. One thing about that as well too is there is some confusion sometimes when we say 500 to 700 words long form content. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have 700 words on your home page, or if you have specific landing pages or pillar pages that serve a purpose to be what I call directional. You know, if you're selling 14 products, it's a choose the product you want. Those don't have to be, but if you're actually talking about the product, if you're giving detail about a problem you're trying to solve, definitely have more content. Thanks, Nadine. Just want to add a little color there. And that takes us to duplicate content as well too. And that's actually the last point that Nadine had mentioned as well too. If you have content on your site that's talking about the same thing multiple times, consolidate that into a single page. And you're not going to be splitting the SEO value, the keyword value across 10 pages. You're going to consolidate into a single page. So you're not competing with yourself anymore. So in addition to this though, if you have nearly or identical pages with identical pieces of content, and I see this more often than you'd imagine, Google is actually going to take a fairly strong stance against your website. They do not like plagiarism. So this means plagiarizing yourself and plagiarizing others. I've often seen somebody say, oh, that's a great article that talks about how this cog works or something like that. I don't want to rewrite it. I'll just copy and paste it on. It's on the internet. I can just take it. Google finds out about that. They actually can demote your site or de-index your site. Do you mind going to the next slide, Nadine? And here's a strong quote from Google. We can even just look at the bolded here. Ranking of the site may suffer, or the site may be removed entirely from the Google index, which means you will not show up. If somebody types your name into Google, you're gone. So never, ever, ever plagiarize, especially from other websites, onto yours. And conversely, you want to make sure that you see that if somebody's plagiarized your content as well too, that you're reaching out to Google, usually through Google Search Console. Again, that's that free tool I mentioned earlier about the backlinks, to notify Google of that. It's a little less severe if you were to quote unquote plagiarize from yourself. What I mean by that is if you have the same blog article, just as an example, with different URLs 5 times across your site, what's going to happen is Google's not going to de-index your site for plagiarizing yourself, but you are separating your SEO value, your keyword value across those 5 pages. And Google doesn't know which one is the actual one you want to return when someone does a search. Gone are the days of the early 2000s when you would do a search for something and you'd have the same article that shows up 10 times on that first page. Google's going to pick one version of that. And if you have 5 or 10 versions yourself on the site, Google doesn't know which one to pick. It may split the SEO value between them all. Pick somebody else who's got one article that talks about something very similar. Thanks, Nadine. Go next slide. So what to do about it? This is pretty obvious. This one doesn't take a big technical expertise. Rewrite it. Rewrite it to either be unique across those pages or combine it to be a single page. There are some other technical elements where sometimes you do need to have that page in 5 different places for whatever reason. And in that case, you can use what's called a canonical tag. I won't get into that too much, but there is a technical solve for that if you absolutely have to have multiple versions of the page. One thing before wrapping up this section, people often ask, well, how much content needs to be the same between 2 pages in order to be duplicate? Is it more than 50%? Is it 90%? Is it 100%? The answer is no one knows. I would say yes, if it's 100% the same, that's gonna get you. But if it's 90% and maybe you switch out a few words, you might be able to get away with it. But I still think about the user and the intent. Why have more than one page talking about the same thing that solves the same problem? If you can have it all in one and consolidate all that SEO juice, all that organic search juice into that one article that says, I'm not competing with myself. I want all my traffic to come here. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So heading over to reason 6, your content isn't optimized. So this is going to be an additional reason why Google is not going to rank or prefer your website. So what is optimized website content? So content optimization by definition is simply the act of making your on-page content more relevant to search engines and users. That might not explain too much to each of you depending on how technical or how non-technical you are. So we're going to get into this with a bit more grit here as we showcase a few examples. But the idea of what you see in what's called a wireframe here on this right-hand side are the different elements or areas of your website. And nearly every element on each page of your website can be optimized for search. So the good news here is that there's a lot of opportunity to create content that ranks or that is optimized for the search engines and for users. And it's just simply prioritizing that and then attacking it in your content as you either update your pages or create new page copy. And copy is just the copywriting on the site itself. So as we talk about getting into the nitty-gritty a bit, we have specific examples of areas on a website page that can be optimized and then what those areas are. So what you have at the top here is a title tag. The title tag is an area of your website that shows in your browser explaining what the page is. It's typically the page title and should very clearly say what exactly can be found on this page. There is an opportunity to optimize that title with a keyword for what the page is about. A meta description, which is not shown here, but is in the back end of this website page, PPC and search engine marketing services. This is where you describe what the page is about. It's going to be a little bit longer from a character count, allowing you to elaborate what you can expect on the page. And this is what you see on a search engine result, showing the title of the page, but then what the page is about. So you want to optimize this for the user. So that way, when I read it, it's going to entice me to click on it because it gives a very clear example of what's on the page. But you also want to ensure the keyword you're looking to rank for is included in that description to please the search engines. John's talked a lot about file size. So here we have an image in the background of this header here. So ensuring that your image file size is optimized, as he talked about. We do not want this image to be too large. It's going to slow your website down. But you also have an opportunity to provide what's called an alt tag. So here is another image. And what this does is it allows you to name what your image is. If it gives you an opportunity to add a keyword, fantastic, but this is really speaking to the user directly. So if there's anyone who's visually impaired, it will display as the alt tag and tell them this is what the image is about if they have issues seeing the image itself. Within here, we have our body copy. So this is the main meat of your website page. And we have a few things going on in here that you want to make sure that you're checking the box on whenever you create body copy. That's keyword placement. So we're talking about something specific on this website page. And in this instance, it's your PPC and search engine marketing services. So we need to ensure that we're using those keywords in this body copy, but using it appropriately. And that's what keyword density is. So you don't want to stuff or overuse your keywords. So how do we create a natural sentence structure that explains what this page is about using your keywords, but also explaining it very clearly and concisely? You want to ensure that you're checking for spelling and grammar. Those are also negative ticks on your website score. And you, as we discussed on your long form content, you want to ensure the content is high quality. That's what's going to help users build trust, find you as an expert, but then also give them exactly what they need. You'll also want to internally link when possible. So what that means is if you're talking about something that is showcased in a deeper way on a different website page within your own website, you'll want to go ahead and give it a link because that will increase your pages per session for a user. The more pages that they look at, the more they get to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it better than your competition. And it also allows Google to, on the back end, to look at this and say, which of these pages are related? And we're going to talk a little bit more about page structure and some of these feature tips. Last but not least, we talked about here's your page header, but your header tag is something that Google looks at to, again, to say, what is this page about? And this is a very primary, high, expensive real estate area of your page to say, this is an opportunity to absolutely include a keyword for what it is that you're looking to be found for.
Great, thanks, Nadine. That brings us to reason number 7, which is users aren't engaging with your website. That's another reason why Google may not like what it sees when it takes a look at your site. So you can scroll down real quick. So what is user engagement or site engagement? It's basically any action a user takes on your website. We may or may not have heard of that third bullet there, bouncing visitors or bounce rate or a bounce from the site. What that is, and we all do this. I'm sure we've done it in the last hour. The last site we visited, we may have bounced. That's where you do a Google search. You click on what you think is a good result. You go to the pit. It loads the next page, and you say, nope, not what I want. What's your very next action? Back button, right? Loaded too slow. Next action, back button. That's a bounce. Someone who comes and visits one page, takes no action, and leaves. Okay. Just so you know, it can be a little bit of a misleading metric, because if we think about something like a news site where it's an article, I just want to read the article. I don't click any of the links. I may spend 5 minutes on the page reading the whole article. I hit the back button. Technically, that's a bounce, right? So that brings us to that second bullet there, which is dwell time. How long is the actual user on that page as well too? That factors into it as well too. But we want to make sure that somebody is interacting with our site. There are a few tricks we can get to try and bump this up, and you may have actually seen these or enacted with them without even knowing it as to why they were doing it. Do you mind going to the next slide for me? So some of the ways to do this. So obviously provide value and content. Get them excited about your product and service. Video goes a long way in getting people to stay on your page a little bit longer. It goes a long way. They have to a lot of times click that play button, right? Clicking the play button is an action. They've taken an action on your site, and give them something to do. Make the page interactive. I know a lot of us have maybe seen those interactive quizzes. What type of Kardashian are you? I don't know. But they can be more useful than that. A calculator. Check your estimated shipping rates, that sort of stuff. You're activating elements on the page. Interlink relevant content. Nadine talked about this in the last slide with the interlinking. This is another way to make sure that they can go to another page as well too. And use the right calls to action. Learn more, sign up now, buy now, download, that sort of stuff to get them to action. One thing about this, which is a whole nother presentation, is conversion rate optimization. Make sure that whatever call to action you have is appropriate to the page. Meaning not everyone is ready to open up their checkbooks the first page they visit for you and say buy now, right? It could be sign up for our newsletter, learn more, contact us, view a client testimonial, download an ebook, whatever that is. Get them to actually interact with the page, and it'll go a long way. Some of the other things that you that aren't listed here that you may not have seen or that you may not realize they're trying to do is, have you ever gone to, I've been doing a lot of home cooking since COVID happened, and I've gone to a lot of recipe sites. After I read the 20 pages about why that grandma's clam chowder is the best, and I get to the actual recipe, you often see there's a little button there that says, it'll kind of go a little ways and it'll say read more, and then it'll expand the rest of the article. That's a little trick they're getting you to do to make sure that you actually interact with the page to reduce their bounce rate. Right? There's other reasons as well too, but that's one of the reasons. Okay, so make sure your site is interactive.
Thanks, Chad. Reason number 8, I know we're coming up on our finish line here, so I will be quick here, is poor site structure. So poor site structure is the way in which your website is organized. So what you see here on the left is an example of no site structure. Basically what this says is, if the centerpiece here is your homepage, and then there are all of these pages off of your homepage, about us, contact us, products and services, our team. Without any structure or hierarchy, Google doesn't understand the importance. And here this says every page is of equal importance, which means if everything's important, nothing's important. So what do we do about that? It's crucial to put in place a hierarchy. And I always find the easiest way to think about this is to think about it as your website's navigation as well. So perhaps if you have your homepage and this is an About Us page, then the page underneath is Our Team. Then the page underneath below that are careers and internship opportunities. And then perhaps the page below that is your blog or content resources written by these team members showcasing what you're about. So the idea here is to folder these pages and sections inside of each other where they make the most sense. If your website homepage is going to be the most important web page, then the pages second to that are then deemed second most necessary or second most important, so on and so forth. So the idea is that with a hierarchy, Google will give the most priority to your homepage. Your secondary pages, and then so on and so forth. So it says, what is the most important thing? How do I organize that content? And how do I display it in a way that makes that the most sense for a user in the search engines? So why does site structure matter? And the analogy here is that site structure is like a highway system connecting your content. Poor site structure leaves users confused. They don't know how to get back to where they came from. They don't know where to go next. But it also leaves Google confused, as we just discussed with this equal weight or no hierarchy on your website page. Bad structure means that the users and Google will leave your website because of this poor user experience, most likely not reaching the information they initially came to discover. This is an example of what's called a sitemap. So how do we do this? We talked a little bit about this already, but you need to group your topics that make sense to be grouped together. So I gave that example of About Us. Again, this showcases the homepage, About Us, our team, our history. There's an overarching service page and then deep dives into the specific services that are offered here. Folder groups lend authority to each other, and the pages near the homepage, as we discussed, target a wider audience, but also provide more of that wide scale capture of that audience, and Google prioritizes that. There are subpages that are much more specific. So again, if someone has a very long tail or specific search, Google's going to then display for them one of these more specific pages. And unlinked or ungrouped pages are orphan pages, which John will bring us through here as well.
I was muted. So I know we're knocking on the door of time. So this is actually a fairly easy one. So if you go on down real quick. So I've run into this in the past where that poor little gray orphan page there, where someone will create a new piece of content. It's the best content they've ever created. They'll put it up on their site. And guess what? It's not linked to anywhere within their website. It stands alone as an orphan. It's not connected to the hierarchy in any way. Google cannot find that page. It doesn't know things exist until it starts following links. Google will never find that page in some circumstances. So making sure that you follow that site structure and that hierarchy and you know where it lives before it's created. If you have the best content, the best products, and Google can't see it, especially via orphan pages, it doesn't matter how well you've keyword optimized that page. It doesn't matter how fast it loads. It's blind. Google is blind to it. And I talked about these bullet points, so you can kind of move on to the next one, which is a very, very important point.
Yes. Thanks, John. Our last and final reason here is that your website is not secure. So Google wants your website to be secure. We see a screenshot here of what happens when someone ends up on a non-secure site. So you can see here, this says not secure, and your connection is not private. Why does Google want your website to be secure? If people feel unsafe using the internet, that hurts Google's business model. So we have to ensure and prioritize that for success. It wants to protect us as users so that we don't have anything nefarious happen to us on the web where someone steals our information or we end up somewhere that we shouldn't, but also Google's protecting themselves. So we need to see HTTPS as a ranking system in Google. So we can see here, this is just HTTP, there is no S. Which is why it's crossed out. And so we need to ensure that that exists. You can check to see if your website has this by simply typing in your website or any website in the browser bar and seeing whether or not an HTTPS displays. So you might say to yourself, I'm not selling anything on the internet. I'm not collecting credit card information. I don't need a secure website. But unfortunately, even if your page does not collect that type of information, Google is still going to warn users, and now the update has said that they will deprioritize non-secure websites. So you will lose out on these benefits of search engine optimization, even if everything else is already correct. Reasons 1 through 9 are buttoned up. Reason 10 can effectively hurt all of your rankings. So what do you do about it? Purchase and install an SSL certificate, and this can be purchased through your domain manager. So if you bought your website and your URL through GoDaddy, for example, you can upgrade to an SSL cert through GoDaddy. So ensure that Google is indexing the pages and the sitemaps, redirects, and utilize Google Search Console to ensure that's done correctly. That's the end of our 10 reasons here today. John, if you want to give a little recap on our 10 reasons and some resources that we have for you all as a key takeaway.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate everyone's time today. So I know we're right at the time, so I'll just kind of go over these quickly. These are, at least the first couple, ranked in matter of importance. Your site is too slow. If you can make your site fast, you'll see immediate impact. There's a lot that goes into it. Talk about duplicate content issues, making sure that every content piece is unique. Making sure that your site is mobile optimized. So for those mobile users, really important. Get engagement up as much as you can. Make sure those partnerships with, if you have a sponsorship with somebody, make sure that your logo on their site's linking back to you. Send out press releases, all that sort of stuff still works. You want to make sure that your site is properly set up from a hierarchical standpoint. Get that content nice and robust. Make sure all your pages are linked properly. And optimize your content for keyword search. Everyone just focuses on 9 when they think of SEO and making Google happy, but there are tons of other areas these days. And then secure your site. And one thing on site security as well too, SSLs are now free for some folks as well. So you can actually, this used to cost maybe $10 a month. You can get it for free, just have to update it every 3 months. And then the last slide here is a link out to, in case you don't believe us, or some testing tools. You can go ahead and use these as a takeaway, bookmark them, and every once in a while go ahead and run your site through some of them.
Well,
I'll go ahead and share this.
I'll say this much. I think that, you know, as far as like practicing what you preached, I'm going down like the list of all the things that you listed off, like having good content, being really well linked, not having any orphan ideas. And I'd grade this presentation as like really following the rules that you were trying to present to. I don't know if that was anticipated, but this was incredible content, and I want to thank both of you so much for sharing that with us. And yeah, this would be an appropriate time for questions, but I just want to quickly ask you both. This was a fantastic rundown on, you know, how really to get the most out of your website. But for the sake of our audience, do you mind sharing with us a little bit more about what SyncShow does? And if someone wanted to work with you, whether it's for this or, you know, what are some of the other things that you do?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, Nate. So SyncShow is a B2B online marketing agency. So we help businesses get found online and then build their sales pipeline. So how can we help you generate new leads? How can we help you nurture existing customers, past customers, and help you build a really robust online strategy that then is impacted with your offline marketing as well. So our main goal and idea is to be a partner for your sales and marketing team and help you build a much more robust strategy that then results in happier customers, happier salespeople, and happier marketers.
Great, thank you. So if anyone does have questions, I welcome you to either to speak up, you can unmute yourself, or if you'd like to drop a question in the chat.
You know, I was trying to utilize that chat for everyone to give a couple of those links. I know it can be difficult when you're just viewing the screen.
Yeah. That's fantastic. You know, I'm thinking back to something, John, you gave a presentation really when the pandemic was setting in, and for a lot of the companies that have missed out on the opportunity to go to trade shows. And I don't know if you could just talk for a little bit about how companies have adjusted, not being able to physically go out and meet other companies. What ways have they been utilizing online sort of methods to recreate some of the synergy that we get at trade shows?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you're talking about is specifically the geofencing tactic that I had mentioned, but in general, we absolutely see a change from the glad handing and the drinks that used to happen at these conferences and making the relationships to trying to find other non-physical ways to get in contact with people, especially to get in front of your audience. Trade shows were great because it was a cattle call for everyone that was important in that industry to come there, and you could just, in one fell swoop, buy one ticket, you're there, you're in front of all these people. It was great. Can't do that anymore. What we can do though, and through some of the technical offerings that we have, but other agencies as well too, there's this great tactic called geofencing. What we can do is you can draw a digital boundary around any location, say the IX Center I know just closed down, unfortunately, but let's say, you know, the new Huntington Convention Center, maybe there was a home expo that happened last year. And you would love to have attended that this year, but obviously it got canceled, you can't do it, but you still want access to that audience. We can draw a digital boundary around that, that event that happened last year. We can track cell phone devices that crossed that boundary last year and then start sending ads based on their geolocation and date information to those phones. So you can still get your message, your brand, your solution in front of these folks in real time, even though we can't necessarily be there in person as well too. So that's one tactic, and we've seen folks do that as well. And then using emails is a big one. So I don't mean email automation. Emails these days are your digital fingerprint. If you log into Facebook, you log into your Google account, your LinkedIn account, you're all most likely using the same email, right? If I have that one email, I can directly target you across all those locations and have a really holistic message that's hidden you in every channel that you're at. So I can make sure that while I can't see you in person, I know who you are, and I can make sure that when you're ready to interact with my message, I'm there in front of you. So that's just a couple examples.
That's incredible. There's so many different tactics you could use.
Yeah, it's all about building a strategy, figuring out what your goals are, and then pulling the right levers as far as how to enact them.
Okay. Well, I know that we did go over, and I think we lost a few people from a time management standpoint, but that happens. So thank you again, Nadine and John, for sharing with us this wonderful knowledge you have. And I'll be sure to send you and everyone else who's still part of this a follow-up once we've had a chance to edit this video and put it up on our website. So.
Well, thanks for hosting us. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share this knowledge with everybody. I hope they found it useful.
Yes, thanks so much, Katie and Nate.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.